Hi everyone, my name is Satyam Gihani and I'm a business development analyst at Synology here in the UK. I'm glad to have the privilege of hosting this webinar today on Virtual Machine Manager Pro, which is actually a follow-up to our previous webinar earlier this year introducing Virtual Machine Manager. Let's get straight into it. Virtual Machine Manager opens up endless possibilities. Through Virtual Machine Manager, shortened as VMM, you can set up and run various virtual machine solutions including Windows, Linux, or virtual DSM on one Synology NAS. You're also given the freedom to test new software versions in a sandbox environment, isolate your customers' machines, or increase the flexibility of your server. VMM lets you allocate hardware resources more flexibly, build a virtualization environment for the purpose of enterprise-level deployment and maintenance, migrate your virtual machines among hosts without disruption, as well as to provide a full range fault tolerance protection. With our webinar being on Virtual Machine Manager Pro, we'll be taking a deeper look at three aspects of VMM Pro, these being namely live migration, high availability, and snapshot protection. However, before I get into that, I'll quickly recap VMM and its features. To provide even more possibilities on your Synology NAS, we released Virtual Machine Manager, which lets you virtualize Windows and Linux systems in addition to Synology's DSM, providing an all-in-one solution with hypervisor as well as hyperconvergence capabilities. VMM was born out of a number of requests from customers who are looking to use the Synology hardware to act not just as a storage, but also as the hypervisor to combine the two and offer tighter integration across this to achieve simplicity, lower costs, as well as optimized performance. Virtual Machine Manager comes with strong operating system support. VMM supports multiple OS, including Microsoft Windows family and most Linux distributions. This allows you to run all kinds of programs and services on equipment that may not be fully utilized. The list is extensive, as you can see on the screen now, going from Windows ranging back to Windows Server 2008 rather, as well as CentOS, Fedora, Red Hat, and Ubuntu. As you can see, VMM is compatible with our units going back to our 11 series and up to our most recent 19 series. So what's the difference between VMM and VMM Pro, as I've mentioned before? As you can see, there are a couple of similar features as the supported, such as the supported operating systems, the cluster management capability, as well as the QoS settings. However, the Pro license lets you take VMM onto a higher level with the number of physical CPU threads, virtual switches, max snapshots, and VM share links, as well as enabling you to take advantage of all the features we'll be showing off today. You may ask how much this retails for. Well, for a 3-node license, this is about €150, equating to 126, 127 pounds. For a 7-node license, you're looking at €300, equating to about 254 pounds. With VMM Pro, you can create a cluster infrastructure with up to 7 Synology NAS. VMM clustering enables migration and flexible scalability for load balancing and resource allocation. With VMM clusters, you're empowered with a number of benefits, from being able to perform live migrations to setting up snapshot protection, giving you a lot of flexibility on how you want to set up your VMM environment. This was taken advantage of by Deschwitzer, who provide a professional IT solutions based on Synology products for private customers, small and medium-sized businesses as well. With many years of experience of building complex IT infrastructures, Deschwitzer offers a wide range of services including file server, contact server, media and calendar server, surveillance station, as well as mail servers and Active Directory servers, all based on Virtual Machine Manager. In our case study with them, Deschwitzer had implemented Synology Plus, FS, and XS units in small projects before and worked well without interruption. Therefore, they took advantage of Virtual Machine Manager to meet the requirements for scalability, on-demand resource allocation, and high availability. As you can see from the topology, they used a number of our Plus units using SSD caches, as well as maxing out the RAMs on a number of the units, and had multiple virtual DSM servers running alongside them. You can find out more details about this case, as well as a number of other case studies from our customers, on our customer stories link on our website. Today, however, we'll mainly be focusing on showing the interface as well as demos on the cluster network setup, live migration and high availability, as well as Snapshot and the restoration features, all within VMM. So the main setup that we had was with DS218 Plus, a DS916 Plus, as well as a DS3018XS unit, in addition to two rack mount units being the 1619XS Plus. As you can see, the details of the CPUs and the RAM that's been installed in all of these units. These units were mainly set up as storage servers, a surveillance server with 3 cameras on it, as well as a snapshot server to show you the different sort of setups you can have within a cluster, and keeping these diverse as well. The setup stages that I mainly went through with VMM were to initially add the NAS to the cluster, add the storages and volumes of these NAS units, followed by setting up the network and the virtual switch, which was then followed by adding in the images and creating the virtual machines finally. Once those are set up, you're good to go really. These can be done in a different order. This is the order that I ended up doing, and I felt it the ideal way. It's step by step sort of going through. Let's go straight into it then. I'll show you how I set it up. So we've got DSM set up here. Let's go straight into Virtual Machine Manager. Obviously we're doing this on the DS3018XS unit, which is our storage server. We'll just add all the units into this cluster. You've got two options there, using your local area network as well as the IP address. Select the network interface that you'd like to use. This is something you need to set up, and then it should bring up the list of all the NAS units that you've got in your network. We'll obviously be using our RS1619XS units, our DS2 and 8 Plus unit, and our 916 Plus unit. So as you can see, I can select multiple units at the same time. So 1, 2, 3, and the 4th unit there. Just hit next once you've selected the desired units. Following on from that, you just have to enter the login details. To keep it simple, I've kept it all the same across the board with the username and password. Once these units are ready and signed in, we can proceed. Just gives a summary of what we've just done, the 4 units, and we'll just add those in. It takes a bit of time to obviously configure these and bring these into the cluster, but it's a fairly straightforward process there. I will just skip forward a tiny bit just so you can see all of them in. There we go. We've got all 5 units into the cluster now, just waiting to be imported and set up. I'll just skip again a bit further ahead so you can see once all of the units are set up. So now we're just waiting obviously for the last unit. So fairly straightforward process, doesn't take too long. Yeah, that's how you add the units into the cluster once this last unit is done. There we go, it's now added into the cluster and ready for use. Now I'll be showing you sort of what the network setup was like. As you can see, we've got the 5 units here. They're set up, as well as 3 virtual machines that were previously set up. We'll go straight into the network, which is a network that we've created ourselves. Now this is important to note, mainly because I had issues here when setting up my VMs. The thing to note is obviously the ones which show that it is connected and the speed that's there, those are the ones that need to be selected. By default, VMM doesn't select all of these ports for you, so you have to manually go in there and make those changes. It's a small step, but it's definitely one to note, as you can be trumped on these, as I was myself actually when I had set it up. So yeah, simple step, but one to note. Now we'll go straight into live migration and show some examples as well as a demo of how this works. Just to give you a quick overview, VMM makes it possible to seamlessly migrate VM instances from a Synology NAS to another within a cluster while minimizing the downtime. This is beneficial when performing maintenance or when disk failure occurs on a NAS, and gives you the freedom and flexibility of swapping over the VMs while you remedy these issues. So here we go straight into it. So as you can see, we've got our surveillance server running on the 1619, the first unit. That's the IP address there. We've got surveillance server right there with the 3 cameras connected in. Obviously it's playing a video in the background on another PC that's there. I'll now set up a ping from this PC, my current PC, to the surveillance server just to show that there is a connection, and just to see sort of how that fares once we do this. So there we go, the ping started. I will now perform the migration, which is to change the running host. Now obviously it'll load the options available, but just it usually takes about a minute or so, but just to save some time I'll just skip ahead to when this is done. Should be around there. There we go, we've got the second RS1619 XS Plus unit, which I'll now go ahead and select, and then just follow through the settings to essentially have that done. So it gives you a summary there from the first one to the second one. Straightforward. We'll just now click apply, and this should start instantly. I'll start my stopwatch at the same time. You can keep an eye on the ping as well as the camera. You can note if there's any drop or if not. Ping mostly stays consistent. As you can see, the migration has obviously begun. It's showing 0% just now. So yeah, fairly straightforward. 25% there. Just keep your eye on the camera and the ping, and it'll be fairly straightforward. Coming up to the 30-second mark there. So about half a minute, obviously. 25% done. This is now up to 50%. Not too long, 40 seconds. There we go. It should now kick in and perform it. There you can see that the running host has now moved over to the second unit. It's about 50% done. Shouldn't take too long from here actually. There we have it, it's done. You can see that it's fully moved over with the IP address reinstated, and that's taken about 55-56 seconds. Ping didn't drop, cameras didn't drop. So fairly straightforward, very useful tool for live migration, powerful tool as well. So again, just to recap, under 1 second of downtime, the whole process for live migration taking about less than a minute. So you can see some really powerful tools there for handling any maintenance that you may need to schedule, or dealing with any issues that you may face with your NAS and your VMs. So powerful tools, to reiterate. Now we go on to VMM high availability. So high availability can be set up on virtual machines within VMM if there are at least 3 hosts in the cluster. One must act as the active server and another must act as the passive server, while the third sits as storage, as you can see from the diagram just there. If the active server malfunctions while the passive server is functioning normally, the system will automatically perform a switchover without disrupting the availability and connections of the virtual machine. On the other hand, if the active server is inaccessible or the virtual machine is unexpectedly offline, the system will perform a failover. As you can see, there are some events that may trigger such a failover or switchover. We've got if the UPS enters battery mode, if there's a significantly high load on the CPU, if there's a malfunctioning cooling fan, as well as network interface issues, any number of them. But these ones are directly from VMM high availability, and these are events that VMM monitors. So now I'll talk you through the setup for HA, as well as show you HA failover. So here we go. We've obviously got our 3 virtual machines set up there. I will select the surveillance server and enable high availability right there. Brings you sort of just a general overview of HA. Now it'll show up the available host. Obviously they have to be the same exact type of unit, and with us using 2 RS1619 XS Plus units, those will be the ideal ones. This may take some time, so just in the purpose of moving it along. I will fast forward this to there. Shouldn't take too long for it to come up. There we go. It shows you sort of the units that you can set up with high availability. The first and the second RS6019 XS Plus units. We'll select those and hit apply. Shouldn't take too long from there. There we go. It's pretty much set up. Now it'll just enable it and it'll pop up that it has been enabled. As you can see, it says paused, obviously because the unit isn't powered on, but you can see right there under the high availability section that it is running on both the first unit, second unit, and the storage server, acting as the third node between the two units. I'll now go straight into the HA failover, show you the demos of that. There we go. As you can see, the two VMs running. One is the surveillance server as well as the Windows VM, both on the RS1619 XS Plus unit. The IP address is there with the 3 cameras and surveillance station. Ping was set up, but I've just reset that just to have a clean connection. I'll now set up that ping once again from my PC to this surveillance server. There we go. As you can see, ping is now active, getting some feedback from that. Cameras are still on. I'll now start the timer, and once I do that, I will proceed to disconnect the power supply, or the network cable rather, from the RS16 XS Plus unit. And you can see there that I've just disconnected it, and the request is now timed out. The cameras have frozen, as you can see by the timestamp. The units are still showing as running and enabled. The reason for this is because VMM builds in some tolerance in the case that there is some unwanted failover happening, some minor disconnects from the cable. As no connection is perfect, VMM builds this tolerance in to give you a buffer in those scenarios. So once it passes through this buffer, you can see that the failover will happen fairly instantly. Coming up to the minute mark here. Still, buffer time gives it quite a good amount of leeway, but as you can see, it's now failed over. The first Windows VM has failed over the second unit, and the surveillance server is currently searching for that second RS1619 XS Plus unit. But as you can see under the high availability tab, it says it's performing the failover. So 1 minute and 15 seconds just now. As you can see, the ping's now back, so it's under a minute 20 seconds and it's back. And now I'll log in. I'll stop the timer first. Now I shall log in back into surveillance server to show you that this is, just to confirm that this is working. Logging in there. As you can see, surveillance server active. I will bring up the cameras now. You can see the first camera is active while the other two are coming on. Ping is still going now, so about under a minute 24, minute 30 seconds. And as you can see there, that it mentions that the host is inaccessible. The reason for that is obviously that the first unit is disconnected, and the two cameras now you can see are back on. So just to recap, downtime of in total under 90 seconds. Again, really good numbers there. You can expect much better with obviously the bigger units, but that's quite a strong number in terms of downtime, just for a simple failover here. So moving on, I'd like to talk about obviously VMM snapshots. You can clone, restore, or create a failover of virtual machines within seconds. Rest assured that you can roll back any human error or hardware failure. Run a VM on remote host means you can choose one NAS as a computing node of the VM, while another NAS as a storage node for that same VM. Now I'd like to go into the demos of this. I'll show you the setup first. You can see you've got the protection section. Click create. You got two options, obviously one being a local snapshot and the second being a local snapshot with remote replication. You can replicate these snapshots across the cluster to whichever unit you choose to. Obviously once this loads, we will select local snapshot with remote replication. There we go. It gives you sort of the requirements that all the units are suitable for that. Select the virtual machine that you want to obviously back up, or rather replicate. You've got the options of different policies here, so daily, hourly, weekly. We're going to stick with no policy for now. Daily, hourly, weekly again for retention. Um, and here we select a destination. So obviously with it being on the storage node currently, we'll now select the RS1619 second unit for the storage, while the VM obviously is running on the first unit. So just transferring that over, or rather replicating that over. It gives you an estimation of how long this will take. Again, retention policy for the destination, 1 day, hour, 1 week, your choice. Enable transfer encryption is an option as well. However, we'll leave that unselected, as well as the notification setting for schedules. Here's the summary of it, and we now hit apply and go through. This will set up here. As you can see, the task is queued, but in the interest of time, I will just fast forward it through to just there. So you can see it's begun and the sync is there at 80%, and then I'll proceed as well now to just fast forward again through towards the end. There we go, it's synced now and it's ready to be used. So I'll now follow through with this, with building it as a new snapshot, or building it as a new VM rather. So here we go. Obviously the snapshot's there. Go to our snapshot list and select obviously the most recent one, which was done at that point there. That's the most recent one. Just give you a full overview of what options there are. You've got restore in place, build as new virtual machine, and sync to replication destination. We're going to obviously build this as a new virtual machine, copy of our surveillance server. You can select the storage there and gives you a summary of what you selected. If you can just click through, it'll come up and begin building this once that's selected. There we go. Obviously this will be within the virtual machine section, so we'll just head over there now. I can show you that the copy has been created. It's currently powered off, and yeah, the server has been created. So now I'll show you sort of powering this on as well. So there we go, that's the server there. Select it and hit power on. It gives you the option now of selecting the host for this, so the running host for this VM. So there you go, you're essentially running it on a different host, but it's the same exact VM server. This will come up fairly shortly, but just in the interest of time again, I'll just fast forward there. It gives you the list of options there. So previously it was run on the first 1619 XS Plus unit, and I'll now select the second unit just to show that it's on a different host. Hit apply and it should be good to go. Obviously you've got to use a VDSM license as it is a new server, so as long as you've got the sufficient amount of licenses, I've got 5 units, so 5 licenses there, 5 units in the cluster, so it pulls it together as you can see. And there we have it. That's now been created and it'll automatically power on, so pretty much running it on a new host essentially. We will now move on to the next section. So now I'd like to talk about one of our customer stories, our case studies. You can find this on our website, and this was actually touched on the previous webinar we had on VMM. This case study was with Pentagon Networks, who are a small MSP located here in the UK, in Milton Keynes actually. They utilize VMM as part of their cluster. They had multiple DS3617XS units and a FS1018. Proceed on with this. So as you can see, obviously their setup, more details on their setup here. They had multiple sort of mail servers in a cluster with multiple domains running, as well as several instances of VDSM with 5 VMs of running with a mix of Windows and Linux, using VMM to manage and handle all of this in the same place. Their setup consisted of multiple WD Gold drives, as well as 12 1 terabyte Samsung SSD drives. You can see more details of this there, and obviously their costs for all of that. More details of this can be found on our customer stories link on the website, and I've linked this towards the end of the slides as well. So obviously with the solid software, as you can see that we've got we need to have a really robust hardware to go along with it to support it, and we've constantly been putting ourselves as a company that seeks to evolve their hardware range, and we've recently upgraded our all flash range from our FS 1018 to the FS 3400 as well as the FS 6400 that provides a 240,000 plus IOPS. So yeah, you can see sort of the highlights there, and obviously to 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 reiterate that we will always sort of support enterprise iSCSI storage. We've got 100,000 plus Synology running NAS servers, storage servers currently, and 250,000 iSCSI LUNs are currently in use. So very strong numbers there in terms of our enterprise iSCSI storage. And obviously to note, we recently released our UC3200, which is our unified controller, and our first actually active IP SAN for mission critical environments. You've got 2 solid Xeon chips in there, and it's a very robust piece of kit. So for your specific IP SAN needs, we've got you covered. And obviously we've got our test and buy program, which we've now currently extended to cover our broad enterprise range from our SA to our 30 to our FS series, as well as our new dual controller. So if you're interested in testing out any of our units with your upcoming projects, we'd be glad to hear it. You can email in and we'll get that going. To wrap up, obviously we've got some useful links here. Please feel free to go through all of them and have a look, providing further details on top of what I've already mentioned in the webinar. And to wrap up, thank you for joining in on this webinar. It's great to have you, and see you in the future. Bye bye.